The Joe Rogan Experience.
But if you have a complete lack of ability to communicate sincerely, that's not being hip or cool.
Right.
That's a defense mechanism. And it's a stupid one because you don't have much time. You have 100 years if you're lucky. They go by like that. If you have $100, you spend $1 a day. Before you know it, you're fucking broke. That's life.
My son was like, how old was Michael Jackson when he died? I was like, in his 50s. He was like, oh, okay. Like that sounded right to him. I'm like, people don't die until much later.
Yeah,
Basically,
normally.
that's me.
Well, Michael Jackson's the craziest case of all time, right? Because he was administering anesthesia every night so he can go to sleep. Dude.
I was playing Want to Be Starting Something and Thriller in the car on the way taking my son to school, and I start crying just because it's like, how do you explain what he was and how monumental what he did was? Like, I can remember seeing him dancing to Billie Jean and like how kind of like broke the mold for music and the persona that he had and that level of creativity. Yeah, it was weird. And to be in the car with my kid who doesn't really knows the name, but didn't,
Right.
It's just, that's not part of his life.
Maybe you should introduce him to that movie, that documentary. What was that one documentary they did? This Is It? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Does that get into the drugs and stuff? And how many years was he doing that for? So sad.
Not very long. But here's one of the more fucked up things. This is something I speculated a long time ago. His doctor who went to jail for giving him the anesthesia also testified that Michael Jackson was chemically castrated by his parents when he was young to preserve his voice. That's what I suspected. I talked about it on the podcast like years ago. I was saying this. I think he was a castrato, which is they take young boys, and they used to do this with opera, and they would castrate them at a very young age. And because of that, their body never developed testosterone. So they would develop this high, piercing, like haunting voice. It's very strange. Like we played there's only a few recordings of actual castratos that are available, or castratos, one of those. But when you play them, they're haunting. Because you realize, like, this is a kid that was castrated as a baby so that he could be a singer. Like, this is fucked up. And that's what Michael Jackson's doctor said they did to Michael. They did it through chemicals. They chemically castrated him the same way they do to pedophiles. So his argument is,
I'm just trying to regulate a situation that was already far gone. Is that his defense?
No, I mean, there's no defense. The doctor's just fucking, he killed him. I mean, killed Michael Jackson. Let him get anesthesia until he died. His defense wasn't that. He was just saying there's something else.
Right.
Like Michael Jackson was fucked up. Like his parents literally chemically castrated him to preserve his voice because he was the lead singer of the Jackson 5 when he was a baby. And that was part of what was great about him was like, oh, baby, give me one more chance. Like that voice.
A nice falsetto there.
Thank you. That voice was nothing like anything that he would be capable of doing as an adult if he grew into a man.
Right.
He would have this big old man, I want to get some pussy voice. And people were like, no,
I'm sorry?
Where's little Michael? He would have like a Barry White voice or something. Like, fuck, you can't have that. Like, you're Michael. You're ABC. It's the easiest one.
Well, he may not have gotten that deep with his voice, but I guess if that's to be believed, that he'd never had the chance.
I believe it. You know why I believe it? Because his voice didn't sound anything like a regular man's. And it didn't sound anything like his brothers. His brothers all look like regular grown-ass men. Michael Jackson's deep voice.
In life, you must understand that you can lust woman to man.
That's not deep.
Something's got cold.
Open the door and you will see.
That sounds like
still
Joan
like
Rivers.
mid-rangey.
I was looking it up. All those places I'm seeing that story about him being castrated are like tabloidy. It's the Sun and that kind of stuff.
Right, but wasn't it an interview in like it was a UK paper.
Yeah, no, I just Googled. It was the Sun, which is like not the best.
That's not the
source.
worst, right? The Daily Mail's the worst.
Both of them actually.
Are they the same? They equal?
Yeah, I would think so.
See, I'm hoping that's so true.
And the last time you talked about this, I got some messages. I don't know. Again, I was getting videos like this of showing like examples of his deep talking voice. In
See, that's not deep. There's a lot of chicks that have way deeper voices.
Yeah, true that. Yeah.
Listen, that's his deep voice. Come on, let me tell you, motherfucker. You listen to the wrong people.
Yeah, well,
I mean, think of how many women have ruthlessly deep voices.
yeah.
Right?
I could tell you a couple right now, yeah.
I think they did it to him. His voice was just phenomenal. Like Human Nature, like as an adult, that is such a fucking phenomenal song. It doesn't sound like anything that a regular man is capable of singing. Like the notes that he hits, like that voice that he had was just haunting, right?
I'm trying to think of who else is a natural star who has a high voice.
Well, Prince
Singing
used to
voice.
sing in falsetto, but it was very obvious when he was doing it that he was doing it.
Yes.
Whereas Michael Jackson, like that Human Nature song is one of my favorites because it's such a slow, smooth holding of those sounds. These are natural sounds that are coming from him. You know, it's like this natural, like warm, affectionate tone to it. It just doesn't seem like a man's voice. It doesn't seem like a woman's voice either. That's my point.
You got the right way of talking.
That's different. That's like falsetto.
Dancing.
Right.
You're saying that's like a force,
sounds
like
like
a
a-
caricature.
Yeah, you could say that.
Dancing that away.
What is
You
this?
feel like dancing. Woo!
Puberphonia,
Yeah.
known as mutational
Hang
falsetto.
on, I have a call
or
on my
functional-
puberphonia. Hello.
It's a type of voice disorder characterized by habitual use of high-pitched voice after puberty. Oh, so that some people get that?
Yeah, it's like a psychogenic in nature. So.
And the other thing is, you look at his body. He had no muscle. Like his body was like, I mean, he was a very active guy, dancing all the time, but he
Yeah.
wasn't built like a dancer. He was built like a stick. You know, he was a very, very thin guy. That's what you would expect from someone who didn't have any testosterone. He wouldn't be able to develop any
Bleh.
muscle. I'm sticking with my theory. I might have biases, but
They're mine.
they're mine. I'm sticking with it. Dig them up.
Make me feel like
Dig them up and check the nuts. Dig them up.